Thank you for joining the Future of Learning Fireside Chat. Do kindly subscribe and ring the bell to keep updated on the content we share on a daily basis. So today I have with me 4 front runners from the education sector who are shaping India's education industry. So I have with me Dr. Arvind Malik, who is an associate professor at the PES Institute of Technology and Management. He's a TEDx speaker and India's first professor to use virtual reality in his classroom. He has won various national and international awards for implementing EdTech innovation into teaching practice, and has also been awarded by the Limca Book of Awards for introducing virtual reality in academics in India. Then I have Shakti Banerjee, who has been the senior faculty head at the National Institute of Design, and he's currently the head of department Immersive Media Design at the MIT Institute of Design, Pune. Then I have Jan Gorin, who's the associate vice president at Equal Intuit Lab, and their vision is to build a culture, not just a school, where creative minds get the freedom to innovate, create, and become a part of the global design revolution. And last but not the least, I have Vijay Kumar Thakkar, who's Vice President of Business at Photon VR. And Photon VR is one of the first startup in India which has bought a virtual reality classroom, and it was inaugurated by the Education Minister Bhupendra Singh Chudasama. So thank you, and really appreciate you guys joining this fireside conversation. So a little context to my listeners who have joined in. So thank you for being part of this conversation. And these conversations are the only way to drive the future of learning. Try to explore what is it that we got wrong and what do we need to correct to kind of push the future of education learning. So today, we have been completely dependent on technology, right from our cell phones, computers to household appliances like your TV, washing machine, microwave. It's difficult to imagine a life without, technology. The growth of computational power has given a boost to all technology. So today, machines have already beaten the best human in the game of chess, IBM's Jeopardy, and even Go, which is regarded to be one of the world's most difficult board game. So currently we are at the 4th industrial revolution, and it's estimated that 40% of Fortune 500 companies will cease to exist due to digital disruption. Traditional companies, including the education sector, that do not adapt or adopt to the future technologies stands to collapse. And today we're dealing with COVID, which has impacted the entire world, especially the middle and the lower middle class. Some of the biggest countries in Europe provide free education, where teachers and the education institutes are remunerated by the government. Today we also have a signature campaign going on by Change, which is saying, should we kind of look at talking about maybe the government or the education institute kind of giving some kind of concessions to the parents and the students. In America, the student loan stands at $1.5 trillion. In India, the student loan currently stands at somewhere around 70,000 crores. So should parents, students be granted some relief? So my first question, Jan, so what are your views on whether the government or the education institute should give some kind of concessions to the parents and students? What are your views on that?
Yeah, so I'm coming from France, where the education is totally free there. So when I arrived in India 15 years ago, I have 2 kids here, so I had to put them in school, obviously, like everybody else. And it was a big surprise for me that I had to pay for that, obviously. Very quickly I understood that, okay, it was part of the system and it's working like that. What I want to say, I thought a lot about this. What I want to say is there is no free education in France, in Finland, and all. Someone is paying for that, in any case. There's always someone paying.
Exactly.
Right? So let's not confuse people saying that, okay, there is money coming in the country and so they make the education free. It's not like that. It's more a question of strategy. where do we decide to put our money in as a government? How much do we ask the population to contribute to this particular department? Now, I would say that this is what is happening here. What do people want? Okay, do we really want a free education? I mean, as people, if you ask anyone, everybody will say yes. Now, if you tell anyone you will have a free education, but there is a counterpart of that. You will have less this and that, and maybe more of this to pay. Will they still say yes? And I think this is the big question that, and honestly, I have no answer on that. You have to be a politician or an economist and know more about the numbers of the country to give a proper answer. But I think this is the question that we should ask, yes.
Yeah. Like you said, well, somebody is paying. The government is paying, and obviously it's coming out of our pocket. But then at least it's not stressing the larger population. Now, if you see, you look at the education. We have something called as massive open online courses. So we already have education which is available free online. Some of the top education institutes are giving education online free. Your edX is giving it free. Coursera is free. So somehow I feel it's the desire and intent which kind of stops you. Now, yes, I mean, like you said, you're from France, and you already provide free education. And besides that, there is your online your platform which is providing free education. My question was mainly largely because of COVID-19, where people are so stressed out. I feel somehow that the government or the education needs to kind of like step up and say, we are here to help you. We are all in it together. So maybe that was my, so Vijay, what are your views on something like that?
Yeah. In India, even in the government school, the education is free. Okay. It is up to us that we have to select the government school or private school. Okay. Right. But in the COVID scenario, in this pandemic, it is not about providing any concession to the school, but it is about to provide a platform or a system where a teacher from the government school or even the private school can deliver the education to the student. Currently, each and every school is fumbling here and there that what they have to do or how they train their children. They are at home. Okay. If we talk about the higher education, they are enough mature. They will find their way. But if we talk about mainly the school education, it is affected much more. Okay. So government should, we can say government must think about a platform or a technology, okay, where without barrier of internet, because in the tier 2 or tier 3 or tier 4 cities, villages, okay, there is still a problem of the internet. Okay, so if the government use any broadcasting system or television, okay, where there is no requirement of internet at children's end, at a child end, okay, then it might be useful to the Indian school.
Right. So moving on. So education industry, their main job is to groom the students to be ready for the labor market, right? That's the main role of the education industry. But clearly, someone is not doing the job correctly. What I mean by that is if you see some of the biggest companies are right now looking at reskilling and upskilling. They're spending big bucks to reskill their workforce. So is there something wrong that the education industry is doing? Should we reskill and upskill or make sure that the education industry grooms the students for the future? Arvind, what do they take on that? Arvind, you're muted. Arvind, you're muted. You need to unmute. Yeah.
I readily agree, whatever you said, reskilling and upskilling is the new trend which is catching up entire India. And I'm not so surprised to see that, since last 1 year, 2019, so we are hearing this word reskilling and an upskilling. But over a period of time, when you consider this on a higher level, everything goes fine. But what about on the lower level? So my concentration is on the tier 3, tier 4 cities where the students are learning very much. And when you consider the majority of our college institutions are located at tier 3, tier 4, or maybe a semi-rural part in entire India. So when you consider there is an education which is freely available on platform, like maybe on a cloud or maybe on an internet, does the education environment supports students to encash those course into their livelihood? That's the number one which everybody has to talk about it. And second thing is, which is very very most as an faculty point of, so it gives me a lot of pain, because our grading system is such a way that we grade student based on percentage. Like for example, we 80% above students are called as in first class students, second class, third class, and we started calling pass students. Since last 3 years, the percentage marks has gone, and now the grading system has arrived. Now we are starting grading student based on A plus, B plus. Now when you consider this reskilling and upskilling, the courses are available. Does education system can change this grading system and understand from student perspective? So in a technical language, what is the carrot for our students? If they learn more technical aspects, or maybe a non-management course, anything which is available on reskilling, what do they have it for them? Slowly I would consider that AICT or maybe on a Swayam platform, people are grading these grades, and government also taking initiative that if the student upgrade their skill, they'll be giving some due credits. But I would say this has to go on a very mainstream, because this COVID pandemic has given us such a penetration to everybody to think only one thing: what next, which is surely for education. And if we can consider this a credit system, or maybe what is there for students, and analyze something on the flexibility giving on the grades on the students, and concentrate more on skill based rather than on a marks based. So I would appreciate that reskilling and upskilling will take up the trend, especially for students, or else it will be just like in business jargon or a business word only for the in a mainstream college.
Right. So Shakti, what are your views on this? I'll just give I was having a conversation with Dr. Abhay Jere. He's one of the first chief information officer of India. And in the course of the conversation, he said that he met the CTO of Amazon, and he was stressing the importance of cloud computing. And he said that there's millions of jobs out there for cloud computing, but there is no skilled workforce. So yes, Shakti, do we need to reskill and upskill from the education industry onwards?
Yeah, we do need that, and it is the need has to be taken in such a way that has to be importance of learning has to be established, because when you give something free, obviously the other person looks at it very because the government school they're giving the education free, so nobody will go there. They will prefer to go to the public school, and they will spend the money as they give some kind of a value to that. So this is also a psychological understanding from from the students or the parents side, and I'm talking generally about the school. I'm not talking about the higher education, but the parents, they have to also understand that the grading or the just for chasing for the percentage, or the making it for competitive competition among neighbors and looking at the others and all, that doesn't make a person a learner. The learning is a very education is something you actually gain something on the line that it's not like just a learning of fact, but it's your training to the mind to think. And that's what Albert Einstein also said, something on that line. And I think that is the learning as well as the thinking, the growing part, that is more important. Unless we are think that we just want to earn and that's why we learn, that is not a thing has to be done. It has to be more like, even nowadays, if somebody is not having graduation, or somebody haven't done the master, but he's a good at something on the skill, I think that skill has to be given much more importance, and that skill can given him he can or she can earn quite more than even the other person. So the thing is how we integrate the learning and education, apart from obviously the commercial and the other point of view, we have to understand that, and as a society we have to bring that understanding or philosophy that it's not for just for to earn, but also to grow as an individual, as a human being, and how they can do with in the society and help to the society.
Thank you.
I think that is more important.
Thank you, Shakti. Yeah. So what are your views? Because right now, like I said, I mean, some of the biggest companies are spending millions of dollars to reskill their workforce. Should the education institute introduce these new technologies? Right? AI, AR, VR, MR, IoT, blockchain. So what are your views?
Yeah. So that has to be done because
yeah.
Okay, you're asking
Jan.
to add?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry. No, you are touching a very sensitive point about adjusting the needs of the industry and what is taught in a school. The big problem nowadays is the technology is changing every month, as simple as that. And we are training students who will be ready in 3-4 years for an undergraduate program, for example. By the time they will be graduates, if we stick to a classic curriculum, they will be outdated. And that is really, really challenging. It is challenging. At École Intuit Lab, we tackle that by not having teachers, having only professionals from the industry sharing what they do in their daily job with our students, to keep our students always updated that way. And the other thing that we really give a lot of importance is we teach our students to adapt, to think, to find solutions, not to learn software. Adapt, to think, to find solutions, not to learn software or technology that will be obsolete in few months.
Right. Yeah. Bang on. The world is growing, changing unfathomably, and we cannot hold on to the classical models. We need to adapt these new technologies. Vijay Thakkar, what are your views?
So it is really required that whatever we are training to our youth, something is missing. Okay. So if I talk about my company, my startup, okay, I have on the same desk at the same position, okay, one guy is a BTech graduate, another is 10 plus 2, okay, and both are at the same position. So it is not about the degree they are having, it is about the skill they are having, okay. So what is happening in the higher education, in the college, students are learning, okay, but what is required while they are in the work field, okay, it is about the practical knowledge, okay. So if we provide the practical knowledge, practical understanding, or even the practical environment where they really can work on the real problem, okay, they can do the job while they are learning, okay, it might be the paid job or unpaid job, okay, that can help them to understand what is the working scenario while they join the company, okay, and they come to know that what they need while they while they start their own startup or while they join another company. If they come to know that the only learning from the book knowledge or from the curriculum is not enough, then they are enough intelligent to find out what is required and start learning from the internet, from the Google, from the Coursera, anywhere else. Okay, so really something is missing in our education system, and our youth has to understand that they have to learn the extra skill, otherwise they are not employable compared to their skill or their degrees or their knowledge.
Right. So Elon Musk, he proudly says, that degrees are irrelevant, and most of the startups are not looking at your certificates because they don't give a damn. They're looking at your skills. What are the problems that you can solve, So COVID-19 somehow it's push-driven everything which is digital onto the forefront. Suddenly, the Education Institute has woken up and has realized about remote work, remote education, remote healthcare. Now, virtual reality seems to be the technology which has already been driving that conversation forward, right? It's got that technology has got all the capabilities built into it. Now, the education industry running at Zoom or other software, is this makeshift approach the correct approach for education, or should we or the education institutes say that we need to make a concerted effort and say that we're going to bring about change into our education and bring about innovation and look at these new technologies like AR, VR, MR, or AI rather than the Zoom university which we are adopting? Arvind, we'll take from you, start from you. What are your views? Arvind, I think you're muted.
If I consider two scenario, like pre-COVID and post-COVID situation, yes, as you said, innovation in education has not reached that pinnacle, just like how we see in commercial aspects in a business. But yes, we do have our own structure which we follow, and it is very traditional. And when you talk about as innovation, creativity, I think our education sector is run by the left brain, because we talk about only logical sense. We never ask our student to open up their right brain, think about how do you feel about intuitive. Nobody talks about innovation as an imagination, as in intuitive per se, but rather, yes, we have been obliged to go for a textbook format which has to go for it, and that is how the university ranks, that is how the policy maker have devised it. But now, considering the situation of the COVID, as you rightly said, it is going to disrupt. It is not going to make a change, it is not going to bring a radical change, but it is going to make a disruption only for those people who can visualize their future maybe after 10 or 20 years. And as I told you, this COVID impact will have a straightaway impact on the top 30 institutes in India. But rest 60% or maybe 50% of the entire education, they'll still strive to understand what is there for him. And now when you consider this innovation, yes, obviously, I do believe every faculty can become a scientist. Rather than becoming only an assistant professor or maybe a professor, they can become a scientist and can contribute a lot of for their in nation growth or maybe in student personality growth. But when you consider as a VR, just go back around 15 years back when Educomp launched their new innovation in a teaching learning process. Everybody resisted. But yes, look about the Educomp has revolutionized. Now you can consider that Byju's as making that paradigm shift in the entire education system. And yes, VR is going to make a radical and going to bring in disruption in the market, provided the policymakers, one thing, and the second thing is the management who runs the education institute should have an open mind to integrate what is available in the market into their system. Steve Jobs says only one thing in his keynote speech when he went for in Stanford University. Creativity is all about connecting the dots. You will never find a creativity just like in a textbook. But in education, people want to know how it works. They want to know the process, 1, 2, 3, 4. Without them, even the professor will never think about innovating the subject. But when you consider this a VR, yes, it has given a a large momentum push for us to understand, can we do something else? Now, when we have posed this question, I had this simple thought of how VR can disrupt right now. I'm talking about the right now situation. I work for an engineering college, and now people are going for a remote, training kind of a thing, and also universities pushing for an online examination. But the student have been pushed not to understand anything on the practical aspects. They have a practical examination, they carry a 20 to 30 marks for that. Now I see a lot of huge potential for VR coming into the engineering laboratories, where virtually they can create a platform, they can create a module wise experimentation and give this tablet as a course for student to intersect in their own at leisure place, maybe sitting at the remote place. If something is always better than having nothing. So, but I do consider that this only taken care by the vision of a management. But if they are very much open-minded, they do say it. And last, Eddie, no matter what happens, whatever the innovation does do, does you acknowledge, does you, Mane, people who are there in the industry, do you acknowledge a student skill or a marks? Now, when you say you can give it straight away, maybe an IBM or maybe Intel, maybe a Google, they hire only 85%, 90%. I'm giving this just an example. But when you consider a person with around 60% with a lot of skill and a person with 90% who is very much logically is good, you're going to hire a 90% plus student because he fits into your bill. But today's trend, what I would sense is companies who are there in the market should also understand, very much should understand, appreciate that as practical exposure, as Vijay said rightly, practical exposure, what the student has earned by themselves in the college environment should give maximum amount of weightage than the percentage. Because when you consider now education has gone such a way that everybody is going to pass. Now, when I started my education in VTU, when we go for a revaluation out of 100, 99 fail. Only 5 students used to pass. But now the situation has changed. Out of 100, 99 students are getting passed and only 1 person is getting failed. Now, when you see this trend, even the education system is becoming very much flexible in order to push the students just go out of the college with some kind of a marks. But now the policymaker should give more emphasis on the skill and should embed this technology or maybe skillful nature into the curriculum. And very much happy to say that in our VTU, especially for MBA, for coming batch 2020, they have integrated VR, AR, IoT, artificial intelligence from a management perspective. From a management perspective, they have designed a course. And I think if everything goes fine, then I'll be teaching VR, AR for the next coming batch.
Lovely, lovely. Wish you the very best, Arvind.
Thank you.
Shakti, your take on it. Shakti, you're muted. Shakti, I think you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Arvind has explained it very nicely. I think, that's it. Because unless we, of course, the COVID situation has made it, people have realized that there is a lot of potential we are having in terms of AR, VR, and technology. And we should utilize that because now the point is when the learner, when the student is also getting the opportunity to, it's a personalized learning. Everything is personalized. You get a more option to yourself how you go about it. If you're given that freedom and if you're given that the technological input that where they can learn the practical things. I mean, virtually it is possible, but unless we go get ourselves the mindset from away from the textbook and mindset away from the marking system, that has to be somewhere we have to push the policymakers that they should do something about it. And I think that's why people will generally feel that unless you feel that there's a notion of learning happens from your heart, that can't be possible as I see. But definitely if VR and AR has a massive role to play, and AI also, which is now everywhere. So the integration of all three can do magic, and obviously we look forward that actually.
Lovely, Shakti. Yes, I think it's very clear that the AR, VR, MR is the future. Experiential based learning is the future, right? I mean, so Jan, your views.
Yeah, a lot has been said already, so I won't have a lot to say. I would say what is important is to take the best of the technology and not necessarily to jump in blindly, you know, but to see what you can do, how it can help to solve your current problem. That's because I see some people, okay, there is VR and they have to do something with VR, and finally the result is not so interesting. What I find interesting is when the students have a particular problem to solve, and they realize that VR can be the good or even the only solution to solve this particular problem. Then it really opens their mind and their possibilities. And when they start thinking like that, you can say that they are ready to adapt to any new technology, because we are talking about VR. In 5 years, there will be other technology coming on the market. But people who are already trained to think that way, to adapt to what the technology can offer, I think they will be really on the top of the game in the coming years.
Lovely. Thanks for your views. Vijay, you want to take it from here?
Yeah. I can speak about how virtual reality can help the students the whole day, because we have done a lot of research and we are working on it since last 2 years. Okay, but mainly I would like to say that it is not about the COVID scenario. Okay, pre-COVID or post-COVID, even the situation is going to become a normal. Okay, like it was earlier. The virtual reality and augmented reality has a crucial role in education. And if I talk about the school education, even it can play a better role, and it is more required in the school education. The reason is, in the higher education, we are having some facility of practical experience and practical doing some experiment in practical laboratory. Okay, but in school, not even in government school or in the private school, students are having the facility of doing experiments. If we talk about almost 95% of schools, okay, few schools are having that facility, okay, but almost none of the school has the facility of doing experiments. And if we talk about the subjects like science, it is a subject of experiment and experience. It is not the subject of reading the text and remembering the rules and laws of the science. Okay, so but what is happening? Students are reading the book and cramming and remembering and having good score, and the students are happy, parents are happy, and even teachers are happy. But when they need to implement that knowledge in a real sense, while they are in higher education or even they are in workplace, they have forgotten everything. The reason is they have remembered that they haven't experienced it. So we have to provide the facility that they do this. They can do some experiment. They can feel the science, and after that they learn the science. Okay, and for that, for each school, in each school, we do have physics laboratory and chemistry laboratory and biology laboratory. Okay, and it is not even possible for government or private school to provide such a laboratory and special lab technician, and even to do the experiment with the child is not even advisable. Okay, for example, we cannot give them the to do the experiment with the chemicals. It is a hazardous issue also, and we cannot take them to the factory or having the underwater experience. Okay, so that all these things is possible with the virtual reality. Okay, we can give them to do the n number of experiments with the chemicals. We can take them to the space to understand how the solar or lunar eclipse is happening. Okay, or we can take them to the underwater experience and we can teach them why fish can swim flawlessly. Okay,
Right.
so this is the main thing that VR or AR can give to the current education system is a practical exposure, mainly in science subject. Okay, so this is my view about it. We have visited many trainers, we have visited many principals or head of the department in many universities or in the schools. All are facing the same issue. Okay, they say that students are very clever, they remember the facts, they are very eager to learn new things. Okay, but we are not providing them the practical things, and that is why we are not using the brain that they are having.
Right.
So that is happening, that can be happen with the virtual reality.
Lovely. So we're running short on time, but I'm going to just ask one last question. I'll request you to keep it extremely short, maybe crisp as in under a minute. So, what is the future of learning? AR, VR, AI. Can you give one or two concrete examples? Maybe just one concrete example. I'll start with Arvind.
So it will become an historic. So I would say rather. So next coming year. So without AR.
Lovely. Thank you. Shakti.
It's more of experimental and collaboration. Collaboration would be the word where we are collaborating, all the things. And we talk about like it's STEM education. It has to be STEM education where science, technology, engineering, and math, and as well as you have
Arts.
design has to be humanities that has to be integrated. So it is more of like you explore and collaborate.
Lovely.
That's what I think of collaboration.
Lovely. Perfect. Jan, your views.
I think that's the capacity to adapt and to solve problems.
Lovely. Superb. Yeah, exactly. It's actually always that simple. It's never complicated. Vijay, your views.
Machine or computer can never take the place of teachers. Teachers would be there, the schooling or college system would be there, but the technology, whether it is the video training or smart classroom or AR, VR, would be the supporting system to fill the gap or what is the missing.
Lovely. What a note to end on. Thank you. Really appreciate you giving time. And to those listeners, thank you for being with us. There was serious technical issues. We dropped out a couple of times, but really appreciate that you guys have been with us. And thank you. Yes, I think the future of education looks super exciting. And these technologies, if we adopt and adapt them, could play a huge role in deciding the future of our education. So thank you once again to my listeners being part of this little conversation, and to all of you panelists, really appreciate you being part of this conversation. Thank you. Bye-bye.